Welcome to Mick and The Phatman talking music, life and everything. From the 60s through to the noughties. Well, welcome everybody to Mick and The Phatman episode number 22. We are talking music, life and everything, and are coming to you live from the Opal Inn Hotel Motel Caravan Park in Coober Pedy. That's right, folks. We're continuing on our journey into Central Australia. We've hopped in the car. We've driven down from Uluru and we've pitched the tent. We've visited the general store where there is definitely no credit on explosives. And we've got an ice-cold slab of West End draft, which we are currently enjoying after that long, long drive in the dirt. Mick, how you going? How you enjoying that second beer?
Mate, is that the beer? It's the stuff that's it's called West End.
Yeah, look, it's called a beer. It's I think it's a draft beer apparently in the can.
It's a big reach.
The thing I'm finding interesting, they're still using steel cans. I haven't had a steel can for, I don't know, since 81, I think, when we were last here.
Well, I think it's important that we start digging up more different kinds of minerals to use for frivolous purposes.
That's it. Oh, I don't think making a beer can out of it's frivolous, buddy boy. So just for those who don't know, Coober Pedy is the opal capital of the world. And I believe digs out most of the opals and exports them and flogs them and all the rest of it. And it's in the middle of nowhere. Just be aware of that. Hot and a dust bowl. As we're sitting here now, I feel a little breeze. It's picking up the dust and blowing it around in small eddies. And as I said, we were last here in 1981, Mick and I, and gee, the place has come along in leaps and bounds. They've got a supermarket here now, so we're pleased as punch to get back here. And Mick, how's the view of the corrugated iron fence that we're looking at right now?
Mate, I don't think anybody does corrugated iron as well as outback towns in Australia.
It is beautiful, and we're sitting here. The dust is blowing, the corrugated iron fence is rattling, and it's just a perfect backdrop for making a bloody podcast. Anyway, mate, what have you been listening to this week? Well,
this week, another TV reference. I do more than just watching TV, but it's what I do at night, so happy days.
It looks like it's all you do, buddy.
Yeah, well, that could be the truth. Look, it's topical, this one, and you'll find out when we open the Globite school bag. The whole experience of listening to music is not just put some music on, isolate yourself, and only deal with what comes in your ears. Music, to me, is part of the culture, and it's film, print, the timing, when you watch it, where you watch it, who you watch it with, who you hear it with, all of those sorts of things. And we've talked about all of those sorts of things in our podcasts and our episodes so far. So this week, I've been watching a show called The Great on Netflix. Really, really very good and really very funny in a very subtle way. Things like it is a lighter treatment of the story of Catherine the Great of Russia. And in this one, Emperor Peter, the son of Peter the Great, is a totally self-absorbed prat, concerned in the main with drinking and bedding all the ladies of the court as and when he can. And that's his sole criteria for performance for his life.
Yep.
It's in the vein of Bridgerton, with lots of subtle jokes about society and particularly that aristocratic society in Britain and elsewhere in over the last couple of centuries. This particular show, well, just the same as Bridgerton, it's got a lot of black cast members, so therefore it's not historically accurate.
Not at all.
No. Everyone has an English accent, and it's all filmed in the UK and Italy. There's lots of F-bombs and lots of sex, but not much that you see, which, yeah, I think that shows good restraint. I've got a good imagination. But
yeah, I think it's, I don't mind looking at the naked form of the female body, but, I really think it's probably time we moved on, maybe grow up a little bit and didn't have to look at a bloody naked Sheilas every time we watch a bit of TV.
Yes.
just that our wives are going to listen to this, so
yes, absolutely. So we're looking for some cover. Yep, absolutely, absolutely.
Jesus.
But one of the things
I gave you a bloody good go. I gave you a good out there, mate.
Well, what else can you say?
Yeah.
Look, one of the important things that these type of shows and what my brother-in-law calls bonnet dramas, because all the women are wearing bonnets. Bridgerton and The Great are two of a really new style of show, which has all of that historical inaccuracy. And it's wonderful, and it's really very funny in a wry sort of manner. But what they've also done is used modern songs to illustrate the story, to accentuate certain points of the story. And The Great is no different, because the emperor is basically what might be called a sex addict. They use the Buzzcocks song "Orgasm Addict" to highlight that in one of the episodes, and I thought that was hilarious. And this particular one, the episode I watched last night, uses Leonard Cohen's "Bird on a Wire," and it's done by a woman whose name is Simone Istwa. Oh. And she's got a wistful voice. I've never heard of her, but she's got a wistful voice, and it's delivering one of Cohen's best ever songs.
Yeah, great song.
Really, really worth a listen, and the show's worth a watch too. Extremely well written, extremely well filmed, and funny as.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, they're definitely good shows, worth watching. Well, I don't know whether you knew this, Mick, but November apparently is Australian Music Month, so I've dug up a couple of oldies. I've called upon my animal spirit, and I've picked out the album by Goanna and one by the Dingoes that I thought I'd have give a bit of a going over again. So, Spirit of Place back in the day, and I can't remember what year it came out, but it's a while ago now. Great album, and it was they were a countdown regular, churning out their wares. Great album. And the other one I thought I'd have a listen to is the Dingoes' 5 Times the Sun, and a great sort of Australian country rock, I guess, is probably the best term for them. And their singer Broderick Smith also had a really good solo career afterwards. I don't know that he made much money, but he's got a couple of good albums out there in his solo space. But they were a really good band, played around a lot, and always was a popular album and on cassette in my car back in the day. I used to listen to them quite a lot. So yeah, have a listen to if you know much about Australian music. In November, have a listen to a couple of Australian albums. Go back and listen to some of the oldies, maybe the Triffids, maybe a bit of Richard Clapton. Maybe Augie March if you're into the modern stuff, but there's always plenty of good quality Australian music to be had. And as I said, if you get a chance to have a listen to the Dingoes or Goanna, you can get in touch with your animal spirit. Mick.
It's interesting that you've brought up those albums, particularly the Dingoes, because the Dingoes have a place in Australian music which is very central to the development of a lot of bands. And I can remember Broderick Smith. He went on and had a band called Carson after that, which was very interesting. He's got a great voice.
Yeah, he's a great voice.
And he was in the Australian production of Tommy.
Was he really?
He was really, and that was great.
Do you remember what he was?
I can't remember that, but he was in that, and it was the I don't even know if you'd find it on Spotify because it's just occurred to me right now, and I'm going to go look for it after the show. He was Daryl Braithwaite, Wendy Saddington. The cream of Australian musicians was in this Australian production of Tommy. So it was a live show.
Oh, fantastic.
I don't know if it was an album, but I did remember watching it on TV.
It was like last was it the show before last? I think we had in the top albums there was the Australian cast version of Hair and the US cast version of Hair. So we maybe have the Australian cast version of Tommy. Anyway, Mick, let's move on. You've got the Globite school bag. I'm glad we're keeping hold of it. I thought we might have lost it out at Uluru, but you've managed to tuck it into the Hyundai to bring it down here. It's sitting there. What have you got tucked inside there today, mate?
Well, what I've got in there, I think it's a bit shaken up because you'll recall that you left the back window open of the Hyundai, and it actually fell out on one of those bumps that we hit. So, but it shows the strength of a Globite school bag.
Globite school bags are not your normal bag. They're not the soft cover rubbishy bloody thing that fall to pieces and get bloody ink stains on them. Your Globite school bag is made to be tough. It's made to sit on. It's made to slide down corridors when you're a kid. And it's made to hit other kids with. So if you've got a Globite school bag and it does fall out of the bag, fear not. Look, I'll be honest with you, Mick. Unfortunately, we also had a bit of a problem with the stones hitting the back window, and we have lost the back window. But thank the Lord for Glad Wrap, as it's doing a wonderful job hiding, keeping that back window secure. Look, the dirt roads are causing us a bit of grief, as you point out. But look, we're gonna battle on this Outback tour, and I'm pretty sure the Hyundai is going to make it through, mate.
Fantastic.
Anyway, are you able to open it? Is it suitable to open?
I tried a bit of WD-40 on both the catches and flick.
Hello.
I've got it open.
There we go.
It's look at this, and look what's inside it, mate. Record covers by the truckload.
Fantastic. There's some corkers by the looks of things.
There's some fantastic things. As I was saying before, music is important. Music's great, but it's not just music, and it hasn't been for all of our history of listening to music. And the covers have been an important part of the delivery of music by any of our favourite artists.
Indeed.
Covers can represent fine art. They can represent sex.
Yeah.
They can represent controversy, and they can be used to generate controversy. We talked last week about the Pistols, and we'll talk about them again. It can allow a band to create a theme for their albums, visual theme. It can allow an artist to create an impression of how they want to be seen by their fans. So there's so much in record covers, and there's so many of the covers that I think we can talk about today that are really going to pull some strings in people's memories.
And I think it's interesting because one of the things that we've sort of said is that, look, I know there's a resurgence in vinyl, and people are loving playing vinyl records, but when you think about something like Nevermind the Bollocks that we talked about last show, you're talking about 39 minutes of music. You haven't exactly got long before you have to turn the record over. And we're not, as we've said before, we're not fans of turning the record over because we can't be bothered. But the thing we do miss is that big 12-inch cover with cover notes, with a back cover, with a sleeve on the inside, with other stuff and pictures and those sorts of things. That's the thing we do miss, just not necessarily playing the record.
Precisely.
And the thing I would love to see a website that actually has all the back ends of the covers on there. Because you go through Wikipedia, you'll always find the front cover, but it's not as easy to find the back cover.
Yeah, very true.
If anybody knows where there is a website that has all the back covers of all the records in the world, in the history of the world, let us know. Hit us up on mickandthephatman@gmail.com.
Right.
Sorry, Mick. On you go.
Well, thank you so much for that. Look, record covers. Tell that to the kids today, and they won't believe you. Look, people who've been brought up with digital music have missed out on a lot, in my opinion. When we used to get a new record, and to a lesser degree CD, although there are a lot less space to play with, but let's just talk about records. When we get that 12-inch box that the LP came in, we'd pore over the cover as much as we listened to the songs. We'd get it because whilst digital has killed the radio star, as it were, has killed the album, it's made pictures of artists a lot more available. So you can just search and go, show me pictures of David Bowie, and you'll get thousands upon thousands of pictures. So, but back in the day when you had albums and you didn't have an internet, all you had was the rock media, which came out once a week, once a month maybe, and that gave you some pictures, and that's about it. And the album, and you could have a look at the album, and we would sit there and there'd be all sorts of clues, and bands used to leave little hints about this, that or the other on their covers, little bits of humour, little bits of this and that. And often when we looked at an album, it told us something about the artist. It told us about where the artist was now, what the artist saw him or herself doing, being, and how they wanted to be perceived out in the real world. And sometimes it was just a straight visual treat.
Yeah. So give us a bit of a rundown of some of the big faves or some of the albums that are regarded as some of the best covers ever.
Yeah, well, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's talk about art and artists and music. And the most obvious one, and I think to anyone who's been listening to us, you'd know that Andy Warhol sticks his head up a few times, as his art has a pretty high crossover with rock and roll music. Velvet Underground, Lou Reed, and the Rolling Stones. Now we know all about the covers of Velvet Undergrounds, and we talked recently about the cover of Transformer by Lou Reed, which had a big input from Andy Warhol. Everyone knows the cover of Sticky Fingers by the Rolling Stones, which is basically a pair of jeans shot or cut off just underneath the waist. So it's basically a male crutch. And it's a faded photograph, deliberately scrubbed, and the image, the wording on the cover is like a stamp, and it says Rolling Stones, Sticky Fingers, like a stamp that you get on your passport, or just one of those rubber stamps. That's the same thing. So that was really good. And there's been all sorts of rumours over the years about whether this waist, because what happened was when they shipped the cover, it opened up. These days, when they reproduce the cover as an album or even soon after its release, they made it just a picture. But the original one was you'd open it.
Did it have a real zipper in the original one?
Yeah, but that proved problematic. So they didn't do that.
But I think the original had a real zipper in it.
Yeah.
And you could undo the zipper,
which became very expensive and very difficult to ship, and it ruined the next album.
Yes, sure.
So soon after that, it was just a flap. You'd lift the flap, and it showed a pair of undies underneath, a pair of white undies. Now the rumor was that it was Mick Jagger. But Andy Warhol never admitted who it was. He actually photographed 4 different models and never told anybody which photograph he used. So I thought that was really clever as well. So it generated a little bit of controversy around this art about whose crutch are we looking at on the cover of the album. Obviously, it could be Jagger, but we don't know.
But if you open the zipper, you don't want to see his undies.
Well, maybe. I certainly don't want to see anything else, really.
I want to see that.
Thanks very much for your little Benny Hill impersonation there. That was very, very good indeed.
Yep.
Madonna, one of her early albums, had a photograph with her head tilted backwards in the throes of singing a song, the passion of singing a song, done by famous photographer, one of the world's best ever photographers, Herb Ritts. And that photograph by itself has become iconic, and it's a wonderful cover of a Madonna album.
Mm-hmm.
Artistic. I think that that most people would at least have seen the cover of London Calling by The Clash.
Indeed.
Which is this wonderful photograph of the band live and the bassist Paul Simonon smashing a bass guitar on the stage. And yeah, you can look at that and say, oh yeah, all right. So they've got him a cheap guitar and get him to smash it up. And bang, Bob's your uncle, terrific photograph. But it's actually a real photograph on stage. He was frustrated with a whole lot of sound problems they'd had during the concert. A little bit self-indulgent for mine, smashing equipment, but Pete Townsend started it, so everyone else who wanted that sort of cred followed it on.
Did it in a big way too, didn't he?
Yeah, pretty expensive bit of self-indulgence, but that's a by-the-by quibble. Now the cover has London down one side, in a specialised font, almost a cartoony type font, and Calling across the bottom. Now, what I didn't know until recently, and one of the fun things about doing this podcast for us is that we're finding out lots of great stuff as well.
That's right.
So we know a lot and we can remember a lot. Not that we're know-it-alls, but we're just like anybody else. It's a lot of fun to go and look at stuff and find out stuff and say, is that how they did that, or is that what that was about? So on and so on. And this one, I never knew that the cover is a direct tribute to the first Elvis Presley album, which has a picture of Elvis live on stage holding a guitar, and it's got Elvis in exactly the same font down the left-hand side and Presley across the bottom.
Yep. Pink letters down the side and then green text across the bottom.
Well, exactly, and that was nice, and I don't think a lot of people actually picked that up when the album was released, and certainly for the Clash's hardcore fan base, they didn't want to hear anything about Elvis Presley or the Beatles or Pink Floyd. They wanted to smash and destroy. With apologies to Johnny Lydon there.
Yeah.
So artistically, the designer, I don't have the name of the designer, I'm sorry, but it really captures, says a lot about rock and roll. And artistically, to link Elvis Presley, who broke so many of the rules and was an iconoclast, which is an old artistic term meaning smasher of ideals, and Elvis Presley, and then the Clash, who saw themselves in the same sort of direct linear vein from Elvis Presley, using exactly the same artistic idea on the screen, on the cover of their album, and that was lovely. And there's lots of artistic covers all the way through.
So the photo was taken by Penny Smith, actually.
Oh, good.
Don't know who she is.
Yep.
Photographer, I'm guessing.
Yeah, Penny's good. Yeah, give her a camera, she can
go
she's anywhere.
Good. Yep. She's very good.
And as we go through artistic, so you got anything else about Penny there, Matt?
No.
That's all right. Sometimes artists, sometimes
actually, just quickly, it was one of the 10 chosen by the Royal Mail classic cover as a postage stamp.
Isn't that awesome? Wouldn't you like to get a letter with that picture on it?
I reckon your grandmother would bloody shit herself, I think.
Well, she would have been around at the time that the Clash was smashing guitars on stage.
That's right, she probably would have.
And that's 32, 33 years ago. About that for the Clash.
Is it?
Yeah, sorry.
I thought it was longer.
No, they'll just put 10 more years on that. Yeah, late 70s. Look, I'm trying to deliberately shorten the time period so
I'm sure none of these have got a 3 on the front of them either. There's a 4 at least on the front of the disc.
Nah, look, some of the ones we've got have got 3s on the front of them.
No, true.
I'm sure of it.
True.
But designing a cover became, as part of the process, often when albums were first devised, it was very easy to just put a picture of whoever you had. Whether it was Elvis Presley, whether it was Eddie Cochran, whether it was whoever on the album, because albums became an art form in the late 60s and 70s in our era. Okay, before that they were a collection of songs released by anybody, and they more often than not showed a photograph of the artist on the front, with an easily read label that could be easily purchased, and that's what it was about.
Well, you would know yourself if you look at often, well, not often, but every now and again on Facebook or something like that, someone sends around the worst album covers of all times, and they'll be like the Johnson family from Arkansas sing Jesus Christ, and they.
I've got that album.
No, you do, and you love it so much, and there'll be something like a child sitting there on a fellow's knee. It looks like he's got an erection or something like that. So
it's a worry.
There's some of those sorts of things, but they're always just the people looking into a camera, smiling, looking really dumb. They're not. There's no artistic endeavour in them whatsoever because they're usually just shit albums.
Yep. Sometimes, look, the album itself, the cover became part of a multi-sense experience for the albums. Some covers were as remarkable as the album itself, and Storm Thurgeson, who became famous as, in his own right, as a designer of record covers under his studio's name of Hipgnosis. and probably one of the most famous ones that he did, although he did a lot. One of the most famous ones he did was "Wish You Were Here," and we talked about that on a recent episode, where the photograph is of two people shaking hands with each other. One of them's on fire, and it is a great album, but just as importantly, it's a wonderful photograph. And the fire from the person who's on fire, you can see that the wind is blowing the flame in a certain direction, and where that wind would logically end is the white edge of the photograph, and the flames continue on to the cover of the album.
Yeah, and it's burnt.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Yeah, that's another one of the Hipgnosis album covers where they did quite a few iconic albums in their day.
Yeah, absolutely. And covers, to be more materialistic, for the record companies, covers provided an image that could be reproduced on a fan's T-shirt. So merchandise, reprint the cover onto a T-shirt, there's another $30. Thanks very much. So it gave the industry a lot of opportunity to milk more money out of people, and of course the artists who got a slice of that. But the industry as a whole is all about making a lot of money for everyone.
So you mentioned controversy. So I just thought we'd just quickly jump over to one of the biggest controversies in album covers. Obviously of the 60s, 70s, early 70s, which has to be the Beatles, Abbey Road, Sgt. Pepper, White Album as well, which, start with Abbey Road. And all this was kind of done post these albums. So it wasn't like, this happened in 1967 and then this happened in 1968. When it happened, it was like in when did it start? In 1969, someone started to suggest that Paul McCartney is dead. And the photo on the front of Abbey Road, according to this theory, conspiracy theory, is that in fact it's a funeral procession. And it's you've got Lennon is dressed in white and he's symbolising a heavenly figure. Ringo is dressed in black, symbolising the Undertaker. George is dressed as the gravedigger, and Paul McCartney is barefoot and out of step with the others, symbolising the corpse. And the number plate on the Volkswagen contains the characters LMW28 if. So Paul McCartney would be 28 if he was really 28.
Talk about a manufactured scandal.
I know, it's great. And there's also, if you go back and look at Sgt. Pepper, on the inside cover, because it was the album that opens out, on the inside cover there's a photo of them all dressed up in their Sgt. Pepper outfit. On McCartney's sleeve is a patch sewed on, which has got the letters OPD, officially pronounced dead. True, this is all there. And then, of course, you go back into the White Album, and I think if you play the White Album, Revolution number 9, it says something about Paul being dead. You've got to play it backwards, of course.
Of course. And most people have the capacity to do that.
That's right. So you have to play it backwards. And then I think there's something about in Magical Mystery Tour, pardon me, where Paul is the walrus, and there's a line in there. This is the walrus is Paul, about him dying. So and if you really want to get into it, just go and look yourselves. But there's a whole. It became international news. It wasn't just like blah blah blah. Just a few people came up with it. It actually made the worldwide news. So and there was even rebuttals printed to say that no, he's alive, he's not dead. That's go and look on Wikipedia if you want to look at it in depth. But there is there's quite a lot of evidence that Paul is in fact dead in 1969.
It's all a bit sad, really.
It's all a bit weird.
On a lighter moment, I do love the cover of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. In the bottom right, there's a doll with a knitted jumper that says "Welcome the Rolling Stones."
Oh, that's right. There is too.
Yeah, which again is them just poking fun at this whole manufactured rivalry between McCartney and the Beatles and Jagger and the Stones, and they actually got on well. They went to parties together. They talked to each other about music and influenced each other in places. There was a rivalry because they were both top of their game bands, but there was no hatred and no enmity between the bands, and I think that's a terrific little finger point at that.
The thing too with both Sgt. Pepper and the White Album was that packaging. So inside the Sgt. Pepper was a gatefold album. So there was the big photo in Sgt. Pepper of the four of them in their Sgt. Pepper outfit, but also inside in the cover there was also a slide out thing that you could theoretically cut out, like a doll's. You know, you get. Dolls' clothes, I don't know, kids have them. They have a book and you cut out the dress and you put the dress on the...
with little tabs.
You can put little different outfits on them. So you had the exact same thing in the Sgt. Pepper album where you could put, you could have a fake moustache and all these sorts of things. That came packaged in the album. In the White Album, there were 4 really high-quality prints of the Beatles, really good quality prints of the Beatles in there, and another big fold-out thing with... music notes and all the rest of it in there, and it was lots of packaging went into these 2 albums, and they would have been, I would imagine, relatively expensive to make because there was a lot of bits and pieces in them.
Yeah, well,
and you don't get that today.
You certainly don't get that. You don't get that with a digital download.
That's right.
And look, talking about the cost of covers and some other artistic covers, Led Zeppelin had 2 really expensive albums, 2 really expensive covers, and those are in particular
3.
Led Zeppelin 3, which had a little wheel that you turned, and the production issues that went around that album were just extraordinary. This little wheel, it's a little metallic wheel, so it's like a metal rivet
in the middle
that spins the picture. So as you're looking and listening to the album, the pictures can change if you're so inclined.
Because the front cover has got holes cut into it, and you can look through the holes and turn the wheel, and different pictures would appear in the different holes on the front cover. Yep. And if you smoked drugs and you did that, it was much better than if you didn't smoke drugs because you could say.
So we hear.
Theoretically, and you could spend a lot of time looking at that front cover, listen to that album. The only problem was you had to get up and turn it over, which sometimes could be problematic.
Physical graffiti was much the same. It wasn't as expensive. We'll come back to expense in a moment because that's what killed these things. Physical graffiti was a series of cutouts. The sleeve was an inner sleeve, a cardboard inner sleeve, and which slotted into an outer sleeve, and the outer sleeve had cutouts, and so as you pulled the inner sleeve out, different pictures would appear through the holes in the outer cover. So again, you got a different picture depending on what you were doing with the cover as you were listening to the album.
And it's interesting because I think when you do a search on best covers in the history of the world type thing, I think it's Zeppelin's first album comes up as one of the best covers, which is where the Hindenburg's on fire, or maybe 2, I can't remember, 1 or 2. The Hindenburg's on fire and it's crashing down, but 3 is much better as far as a cover goes, I reckon.
Well, in terms of cost, the cost for this, the cost for the Sticky Fingers album, great ideas, and often the artist drove this as wouldn't this be really cool to do? Not having to worry about the cost, they still got their percentage of the sales. So it was up to the record company to buy into it, and really it could only be done with an artist that would sell millions of copies. Now the covers of Sticky Fingers with the zipper, the original one, and of Led Zeppelin 3 with the rivet, both provided hard, lumpy bits inside the packaging. So when they used to ship records, they'd put them inside a cardboard box. And because they were flat, that was fine. They know they could fit 25 records into a box without damaging any of the records, and so they'd get to the record shop, and the record shop guy would open it up and put them on the shelf, and everyone's happy. Yeah, everyone makes, as Warren Zevon once said, we'll all make a few $100,000. Happy days. Now, when you have metal studs and lumps, that makes the album wider. And in the case of a metal rivet, it actually impacts on the quality of the cover, the next one that's beside it.
Mm.
So if you can't get 25 into a box, so the shipping cost goes up. If you've still got to shift 1,000 copies to any given city, and you can only get 20 in the box because of the rivet rather than 25, bang, you just increase your shipping cost by 20%.
Mm.
The dissatisfaction because the original rivets would break. And would impact on other records in the collections of fans' collections, So it's starting to rip and gouge other records. The Sticky Fingers zipper did much the same sort of thing, and it broke easily. Yeah. This is in a high impact environment. The records are being listened to.
And the other thing is, if you lend them to your mates, you're less likely to get them back because they're good covers.
Well, because they've broken your bloody cover and they're embarrassed and they're not going to buy you a new one. And that's why all of those albums came out like that, but very, very quickly reverted to a much more flat presentation.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, so look, Led Zeppelin is a good example of a band that used the artistic representation on the cover as a way of talking about visually what they were trying to say. Led Zeppelin 2, hey, we're a band, Zeppelin. It's heavy. It's fairly obvious that we're talking about a Zeppelin. Let's make a historical image fit into us and represent it further. So it's the famous shot where the Zeppelin backed into with the Hindenburg,
which wasn't a Zeppelin.
Not for practical purposes.
Saying.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
It was a Hindenburg.
Mr. Picky. For all practical purposes, it was a bloody Zeppelin.
It was a balloon.
Yeah, exactly. It was a balloon and it was on fire. So that particular image was a great representation of Led Zeppelin. A Zeppelin, big, historical, and on fire. Lots of noise, lots of impact. Number 3, we've just talked about that whirling wheel was fantastic. Led Zeppelin 4. Now, the art of shooting a window in an old derelict house with peeling wallpaper and having an old guy through that window picking up sticks. It looked, maybe Russia or maybe Eastern Europe. That I don't know where that was filmed, but it suggests that sort of thing to me. And Led Zeppelin increasingly were trying to create the image of taking on a lot of influences, a lot of different sources for their music. They were the band that created heavy metal, but they didn't want to be constrained just to heavy metal. They had a lot of folk in there. They always had a lot of acoustic stuff in their albums, and that cover has become one of the most iconic covers of all time, because you look at it and it's so different. It's so unusual.
Mm. And then they started to get a little bit sort of into the runes and all that sort of stuff, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, the runes written on the cover. Yeah, it's because they couldn't think of a name, so they just called them 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Just back on the Hindenburg, which I find one of the things I find really interesting is that people survived out of that fire.
My God!
And if you go back, if you just search it, some people may not have ever seen it as it comes crashing down. The whole thing ignites because it's filled with hydrogen. It's basically a floating bomb. But yeah, the people actually bloody well survived out of the damn thing. So I think he might have been a bit scarred for life out of that bastard, to be honest.
Well, I certainly wouldn't have liked to have gone up in one of them.
No.
Certainly wouldn't have liked to have come down in one.
Not like that, anyway.
Exactly right.
It's a quick trip down.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on to maybe a slightly more modern album cover, and one that has just been controversial just recently because it's been in the news.
Ah, yes. Which
is Nirvana.
Yep.
Give us a bit of a talk on that one, mate.
Well, given our time frame, recent is 1993.
Is it 1993?
Yep.
Golly gosh.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I would expect that nobody who's listening to this podcast wouldn't be familiar with the cover of Nevermind by Nirvana. And look, just as an aside, which I didn't mention during the Sex Pistols issue, Mr. Contrary, Johnny Lydon, claimed that Nirvana stole the title for Nevermind from the Sex Pistols album Nevermind the Bollocks.
Because it's the same word.
Because it's the same word, and it's never been used in the history of the world ever.
Never.
Okay. By the by, so it's a photograph, a wonderful photograph of a
child.
Well,
a baby.
An infant, a baby, yeah. Totally nude with the little penis swimming around in the water.
By itself?
By itself, floating. And what's really funny about it is there's a dollar note on a fishhook being dragged away from the kid, and the kid, as kids do, swimming in the water and reaching out for this dollar note on the fishhook. The design was intended to suggest that from birth we're trained to chase the dollar. So Nirvana was a little bit controversial in their days, and certainly was a little bit disruptive in terms of their social views. They were always, contrary is a word that I use often, and certainly Mr. Cobain was. And it was definitely the band's view that the record industry was out to rip them off, and they felt very strongly about that. And a lot of what they did was based on that view. But we've got the cover of a naked infant chasing a dollar. And lately, the controversy has erupted in the media again, in social media. One is, why do you need to show a naked child? And they identified it right at the outset. They wanted to put the record company was worried, Mr. Conservative. They wanted to put a sticker on the album to cover up the infant's penis. And
but you could peel off.
Oh, God only. I've never heard of a dumber idea in my life. But
penis here.
Yeah. Do not remove. But Cobain said that the only sticker he would agree to for the cover was one that says, "If this picture offends you, you must be a closet pedophile." Which I must say, I tend to agree. He's a little contrary. He was a little contrary in the way he put his views forward, but I must agree with that. It was a massive overreaction. Not all nakedness is nudity, and not all nakedness is offensive. Otherwise, Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci have got a lot to answer for.
That's right. I'm just going to apologise. The Hindenburg was a Zeppelin.
Yeah. Anything? Have you learnt from this now?
I have.
Have you learnt that what I say generally is right, and that anything that you're not sure of, work on the assumption that I've got some idea what I'm talking about, even if I don't.
I just might have to wander off a few moments to self-flagellate.
That could be good.
Yep. What you've got?
Can you get a photo of it and put it on someone's album?
No, I'm going to video.
Yeah, that's a good. And put it with the digital download of somebody's album.
That's it. So move on. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So Nevermind. So a guy, the infant that is in that photograph is suing Nirvana's management and record company, claiming that he's been scarred for life at the fact that they've used his image in the photograph. The record company's laughing it off, and their lawyers don't see that there's much of an issue here. And as Dave Grohl said, for Christ's sake, this guy's got a Nirvana tattoo.
Has he?
Yeah. It's just a grab by some lawyers.
Well, I don't mean to be a little bit cynical, but there was the tragic accident that just happened recently over in the US, where I think 8 people got crushed at a concert. Now, the first person I heard hear about it was standing there crying and talking about how their lawyers will be handling the case. And I sort of think, this was the day after. They hadn't even worked out, as far as I'm concerned, worked out culpability at that particular moment. It's the day after. And there's lawyers at 50 paces. There's all the lawyers, I'm assuming, ringing up going, we'll represent you for nothing, 30% fee, 50%, whatever they charge. I have no idea what they charge. But, yeah, you just get yourself a free lawyer and go to town. And I just think, can we just have a quick grieving process for more than 3 hours before we get the lawyers in. It's rather sad.
It's a very strange country.
It is, and it's getting stranger by the minute.
Well, precisely.
Now, look, I want to bring a couple of albums up that
I think you should.
That I'll put this in the controversial cover, and it's an album that we used to listen to back in the day. Look, it's got no musical class whatsoever. In fact, it's a comedy album by a couple of fellas called Derek and Clive. An album called Ad Nauseum. If you get the opportunity to have a listen to it, if you're easily offended, don't, for a start. It's about as politically incorrect as you could get, 30 years ago or 40 years ago.
Ever.
And now it's even more politically incorrect. But it does have a beautiful photo of a vat of vomit with a pair of false teeth in it. So just search for Ad Nauseum and have a look at the photo, because it is very funny. If you're easily offended, as I say, do not listen to it for one little bit.
But you should explain who they are, who Derek and Clive are.
So, if one is familiar with a couple of English comedians called Peter Cook and Dudley Moore of 10 fame, and Peter Cook of Peter Cook and Dudley Moore fame, realistically, great British comedians, very funny and very offensive in their time. And if they had a few beers and got together in a studio, they would usually produce this profane album or clip of vocals of just filth. Basically, it's filth, I think, is the right term for it, and irreverent. And they're alter egos of Peter Cook and Dudley Moore. If you want to have a look, do so at your own discretion. A couple of others, I just thought I'd have a quick chat about this couple of Australian albums, which would probably never get into the international best album covers. But one is the Circus Animals by Chisel, and it was an album the album cover was shot by a photographer called Peter Levy. But we'll put a link to it somewhere, and but it does show a photo of the band in the middle of a desert with a caravan, and oddly enough, that caravan is not very far from where we are right now in Coober Pedy. It's actually in Lake Eyre, which is one of the largest salt pan lakes in the world, and in fact, Donald Campbell broke a land speed record there in the long time ago, before they were using jet propulsion, and so it's a big salt pan lake, and they dragged this old vintage sort of caravan all the way out from, I don't know where, probably Adelaide, I dare say, up, stuck it in the middle of this salt pan, salt lake, and took a couple of photos of it. And I do believe left it there. So I actually don't know if it's still there, or it's got probably got flooded away at some particular point. But yeah, it's quite a quite an interesting thing. But it's funny, the Don Walker was saying, I wanted something that was Australian and couldn't be mistaken for anywhere else. Wide, flat space with a caravan on it. So quite a good album cover there.
Anyone who's been out there would know that that is so typically Australian. It is extraordinarily flat. A lot of people fly to go to places. They fly to Broome, they fly to Uluru, and so on and so on. But the Australian way to do it is to drive. You recall I did it a few years ago with a bunch of Harleys, and we pulled off the highway and got a similar shot to the Circus Animals shot, just on a layoff on the side of the road, because it's so damn flat.
Yeah, it is. And I was just out there earlier on in the year, actually, and the lake is actually 12 metres below sea level. I think it's 12 metres below sea level. I can't remember exactly, but it's a vast lake. If you were to look it up on Google Maps, you can see it from the air, and it's just this huge white expanse of death if you go out on the damn thing. Another one that speaking of great photographers, Jerry Harrison's Casual Gods, which is the album that features the photo by Sebastian Salgado, amazing photographer, and it's of the Sierra Pelado gold mine in in South America where there's all these workers climbing the sides of this mine up ladders, carrying everything up. Fantastic photo on the front of that album. I mean, it's not made for the album; it's just a photo that they've used on the album. The album's has got some good songs on it. Probably not quite as good as the photo, I would suggest. And just one other quick one with an interesting Australian link to it: the Johnny Cash Americana albums. So the first one, which was actually called Americana, what are the other albums called? Anything? Or just Johnny Cash 1, 2, 3, 4? I can't remember now.
Yeah, they're called.
I don't know. Anyway,
Mental Block.
It's kind of regarded as the Americana series with Rick Rubin as the producer. But that first album, which is Americana, and he's standing in front of the prairie-looking photo, was in fact photographed down at Werribee in Victoria when he was on an Australian tour back in, I don't know when, probably the late 90s or early 2000s perhaps. Yeah, so it's a bit of an odd one because you're thinking, oh, yeah, that looks very American, but in fact it is just down around Melbourne way, oddly enough. So, yeah, so and if you're into your Johnny Cash, which they're great albums, as you know, with so many different songs on there.
I mean, we've talked about some of those albums before.
Yeah, so. Yeah, that's right. But yeah, and some of the later albums, the covers are just incredibly intense photos of Johnny Cash, looking old but looking sensational. Anyway, that's it for me, mate. What else you got there, buddy?
I just think one thing. You've just thrown in Jerry Harrison, and probably many people may not be aware that he's a member of Talking Heads.
Oh yes, I didn't think to say that.
Yeah.
I don't know whether he's still a member of Talking Heads. I don't think they exist anymore, do they?
Not as such, but
No.
But certainly in the time frame that much of our episodes exist, he is or was a member of Talking Heads.
That's right.
Artistic covers. Jethro Tull, Thick as a Brick.
I had that on my list as well.
Yeah, well, exactly. And it's a cover taken very similar to the ones we've already talked about that was bloody expensive to produce and ship, because what they did was the cover of the record was produced as a newspaper with lots of stories about the local community of Gerard Little Milton Bostock.
Right.
And you know, you get a local community magazine, a newspaper, and it's got all sorts of nonsense stories with lame quotes. And this album was covered in this newspaper. So you'd buy the album, you'd fold it out, and keep folding it out. So it was all of this paper like a giant newspaper. Now, the cost of producing that and bundling it together and shipping it meant that very soon they lost the paper, and it was just a double gatefold with a reduced number of the stories on there.
Yeah.
But it was a very huge artistic statement to make, and Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull certainly tried on various occasions to make bits of artistic statement.
Yeah, no, that was a great album. And did you like the album? Just quickly,
It was good to listen to for about one side.
That's. I think it got a little bit overblown by the. Once you turn the record over, you kind of had enough, I think.
Yeah, precisely.
Another one that just I don't know whether you have ever thought about this one. The Peter Gabriel album, it's not really called Melt, but it's kind of regarded as the Melt album, where his face is essentially melting on the cover art. And I was just because that is a really good album. That is a sensational album, actually. But that was actually taken with a Polaroid instant camera, that photo. And then Peter was working with Hipgnosis, who we talked about earlier, and he was actually doing the work himself, disfiguring himself by manipulating the Polaroids as they develop. So as the photo's coming out, he's then manipulating the photo and produces the melting face with the Polaroid instant photo.
Excellent.
It's really interesting.
Well, he certainly played with these cover photos quite a lot, and we can go on and talk about a couple of artists who've established an image for themselves with their album covers. But there was the second album, which is known as Scratch. Where,
yes.
Where the image is almost of him holding his hands up with the fingernails and fingers facing him, and he's dragging them down
on the cover.
On the cover of the album.
Yeah.
So his fingernails have scratched away half of the image on the cover, and it's really, really quite a confronting image. It's just wonderful.
Yeah, no, it's a good one. Yeah, but I thought that was interesting, actually getting an old Polaroid and actually doing the artwork with that.
Yeah. He's there's some very clever photographers, and I've got some very close associations with the photographic industry and some photographers in particular, and I'm really in envy of people who can look at what you and I might consider to be an ordinary photograph and say, I can see that this can be something a lot more.
Another photograph which surprises me was after the gold rush, and it's not a particularly exciting photo, but I was just reading about it. If you just look it up yourself. It's very solarized, so they've used this treatment on it called solarizing it, because the photographer was saying he actually missed the focus. So he's actually focused between Neil Young and the fence, so they're actually a little bit out of focus. Now, the thing I never knew and never noticed until literally a couple of years ago was there's an old woman in the background. I never noticed it before.
Is that right?
And now, every time I look at it, I can only see the bloody old woman. That's all I ever see on the bloody thing. But yeah, I never noticed there was the old woman in the background. I'd never seen it. I just glanced past it, obviously. But yeah, anyway.
Is that just an incidental capture, or is she supposed to be in the photo?
It's incidental. She was. So they were taking the photo, and the photographer saw this old woman walking down, and he positioned Neil Young to in the right spot and got her as she walked past. And Neil Young saw it and said, yeah, we've got to keep it. But yes, it was incidental. She was not meant to be there.
Wow. Isn't that awesome?
Mm.
There's so many covers. Maybe we touch on a couple more.
Yeah, give us a couple more, and I think we might call it quits then. A couple more that sort of rock your boat. I think you've got to go to your old favourite there, Mr. David.
Mr. David Bowie, who part of his entire persona is the image and the different characters that he adopted throughout his career. And you start with the one that jumps off the page, no pun intended, most obviously is the cover of Aladdin Sane, which is him with the spiky haircut and a lightning flash across his face. That is, if you ask anybody about a photograph of Bowie, and that is most likely what's going to come into their mind. He did lots of other great stuff later, and some earlier too, which were fantastic. But that particular shot, very simple photograph, almost stylized in many ways, with much of the colour stripped out of it, so that it's just a white photograph of Bowie with this blue and red lightning flash across his face, and that was beautiful.
Yeah.
But some of the others that he did, the photograph of Ziggy Stardust, which we talked about in one of our early episodes, it's Bowie in a phone booth in a street in London, and it is a real street.
Oh.
The photographer said, "Come on, we'll go and take this photograph." They took a photograph by a tailor, and the tailor is Ken West.
Oh.
In London, and he's got the sign up there outside of his shop, and Bowie's there in the phone booth, which don't exist anymore, and then they just colorized it and made it look almost cartoonish, and it became the cover of Bowie's breakthrough album. So again, very clearly identified. Diamond Dogs. The cover of Diamond Dogs, which at the time it was reputed to be what's a diamond dog. There was all sorts of discussion about whether it was a transvestite or
a bit gender bendy looking,
isn't it? Gender bendy looking, and it was done by a fellow who did lots of art called Guy Pellert. Oh. And so you gatefold it open. It was a gatefold, single album, but gatefold, and you open it up, and there's Bowie as with his face, but as a dog, and it's very stylized. But it was very realistic. And so when Mr. Perlout did the picture of Bowie, he made it very obviously a male dog. And the record company wasn't delighted with that. And so they had the picture airbrushed so that he became a gender-neutral dog.
Oh, lost his willy.
He did indeed. So and things like Low, Station to Station, and the photograph of Heroes, with Bowie just sort of flipping off his hand off his head.
That's a good photo, isn't it?
It's a lovely photograph. Yep. Another photograph. I mean, lots of Bowie, and you know I love Bowie, and I could just go on forever about him, but I won't. Patti Smith, an American New York performance artist, a bit abrasive for some. I find it quite interesting. And the photograph of her first on her first album, Horses, was done by a photographer by the name of Robert Mapplethorpe.
Oh, Mr. Mapplethorpe.
Mr. Mapplethorpe, indeed. So he did this photograph, and it's a beautifully elegant photograph of this woman who is not a society glamour. She's not a typically beautiful woman in the conventional sense, but this is a wonderful photograph of her very casually, just looking straight at the camera with a black coat held on by her thumb over her shoulder. And the instruction that Mapplethorpe gave her was none. Other than, if you're going to wear a white shirt, make sure it's clean. Now, Robert Mapplethorpe, for people who aren't into the artistic side of things, Robert Mapplethorpe is one of those who had some interesting predilections in his private life. And one of the most famous photographs of Robert Mapplethorpe is where he took a self-portrait, set it up, of himself as a horse, with the tail being comprised of a horsewhip shoved up his ass. Yeah. And it's a confronting photograph, you might say. Certainly an interesting way of presenting your own image on stage.
Yeah, he took a few photos like that sort of stuff, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
If you want to hunt down Robert Mapplethorpe, we suggest you do it in the privacy of your own home.
I would say so. It's not safe for work.
Don't get on the work computer and start bringing up, particularly in the now that everybody's got bloody open offices.
It's a worry, isn't it? Yeah.
See, I loved it.
Oh, what's that you've got on your screen there?
Oh, that'd be Robert Mapplethorpe with a horsewhip up his arse. Lovely. That's grand. Yep. All right, folks. I think we might call it quits. So that's been a really happy jaunt through the world of album covers. There's thousands of the damn things that we could go on about, but just a little snippet of them. Look, what we would like you to do if you want to get in contact with us and just give us an idea of how we're going, and also what it is you think we should be doing coming up over the next couple of months. We've obviously got plenty of ideas ourselves, but they're fairly self-indulgent. So if you want to tell us what you would like us to do, please drop us a line any way you like, either on the Facebook page or send us an email. If you like, you'll see the contact details in the show notes. If you enjoy the podcast, don't forget to tell your friends, and don't forget to consider giving us a rating on any of the devices, any of the platforms that you listen to us on. And as I say, hit us up on the email, Instagram, Facebook, any of those. Be sure to check out the show notes. We'll put a few of these. We can't really put. We'll put some of the albums up there so you can at least see them in Spotify or one of those sorts of things. But you won't get the full view of how it really looked and all that sort of stuff. But you can have a bit of a. You can go off and do your own research.
You can find them all in Google.
They're there somewhere. Often, if you do search some of these, just search such and such artwork, and you'll probably get a more detailed. And then go image, and you can see some good. Sometimes a lot of the images on the internet are pretty poor quality because they're made for the internet. They're not really made for consuming as a photo. But anyway, as I say, folks, thanks for listening, and we look forward to chatting to you next time. Bye now.